Welcome back to our teams of questionable quality. Adam, can you remind us of your back four and your goalkeeper, please, for your team of questionable quality?
I can. So far in my team of questionable quality, I have Danny Ward in goal. I have Carl Jenkinson at right back. I have a centre-half pairing of Shokran Mustafi and Wout Faz. And I have Andre Santos at left back.
Okay. Connor, can you remind us of your back five, please?
Yeah, so Aurelio Gomez is the goalkeeper. The right back is Khalid Boularuz. My two centre-halves are Sebastian Skilacci and Ragnar Klavan. And my left back is Masadio Haidara.
Oh, God. And just to remind the listeners of mine, Aurelio Gomez, Emmanuel Abui, Scalacci, Ian Evert, and Herman Hreiderson. So definitely some back fives of questionable quality. This episode, we're going to go forward in terms of the forwards and the midfielders for our teams of questionable quality and wrapping it all up in our season one. And at the end, we will look to combine them into an 11, which I think will be extremely difficult. So, Ad, who is your holding midfielder?
So in my list of three midfielders, so I'm going for a 4-3-3. I have reasonably two players that could play holding midfield, but my holding midfielder of choice today is Manuel Ugarte. And it pains me to put him in, but every single time he either starts a game for Man United or comes on as a substitute, I can guarantee that something always goes wrong. He'll always get booked. There'll always be, his passing ability is atrocious. And for some reason, whether it's Michael Carrick, whether it's Ruben Amorim, they always brought him on to try and see out a game. And the amount of times I've had absolute kittens watching Man United thinking he's just going to give away a foul or something, or he's going to give, give the ball away in a really bad area. It basically
They signed him a lot
week.
of promise, didn't they? Signed him a lot of promise, and
they did.
He's not really lived up to it, has he?
No, definitely not in a Man United shirt. I mean, he's played for some big clubs. I mean, he was really good at Sporting Lisbon under Ruben Amorim. He played, obviously, for PSG for a bit as well until they obviously rejuvenated their midfield, and we signed him from PSG. And I thought that we were getting a really top talent, a lot of legs in midfield, just that real, ball winner and that absolute bulldog in midfield. But he is more like a Shetland pony than he is a bulldog. And it's horrendous.
So, Con, who have you gone for in your holding midfielder position?
So in my holding midfield role, I have gone for Alberto Aquilani.
That is a great shout.
It's a great shout.
That is a great shout.
Yeah, one of the signings in that era at Liverpool when they just went out and bought random foreign players. I think he may have been in part of the same influx as Andre Voronin, who we've obviously spoke about in the LQQ before, was brought in to be the Xabi Alonso replacement for Liverpool. Xabi had gone to Real Madrid. They bought him in. I think they bought him in for about 17.1 million or something, and I think in total he made 18 Premier League appearances for the club. So really never did anything of note or of use to that Liverpool side, and after his first year there was then loaned out to various Italian clubs and ended up then leaving very, very quietly and quite quickly a couple of years later because of how terrible he was as a player.
How many times did he play for Liverpool?
18 Premier League appearances, 28 appearances in all comps across the time he was there.
He's injured a lot, if I remember rightly.
Well, I think he was injured when he signed for the club because he didn't actually then make his first appearance until October. So I think he was injured when he signed, and then he consistently got injured whilst he was there, which obviously would have affected his rhythm and his ability to play. But I mean, even when he did play, he looked so far off it. He was nowhere near the levels that Xabi Alonso was at. I don't think he was ever going to be, but they certainly expected, I think, to get a better player than they did for the money they spent and to, be replaced in that role. And I think it says a lot about a player if you've come in to replace Xabi Alonso, but you then end up getting replaced by Lucas Leiva. I think that says you're pretty bad.
Interestingly, on Aquilani, every single time you Google top 10 worst midfielders of the Premier League era, he is on every single list on every single website because he was horrendous.
So holding midfielder for me, I've gone back to a player that when I was younger, and we were playing a lot of FIFA, and I used to do a lot of career modes with Stoke. And a player that I'd always sign for Stoke, I don't know why, again, random, probably 8-year-old, 9-year-old mind of me, was Fabio Rochenbach. Right. Now, I believe, because of the unbelievable goals that he scored and some of the absolute thunderbolts that he scored for Middlesbrough, but I'd always sign him for Stoke. I don't know why. Every time I used to get the ball in my nan's front yard, I used to pretend I was striking it long range and I was Fabio. I don't know why, so random. But I didn't know that obviously he played just for Middlesbrough. And when I was researching him, I don't know why, but I expected him just to play for Stoke because that was the team I was using him for. I was like, oh, he obviously played for Stoke. He never did. He just played for Middlesbrough in the Prem. But he was actually, in 2001 and 2003, he played for Barcelona.
Hey?
Yeah, he played for Barca. Yeah. He played for Barca and then he played for like Sporting Lisbon. He played for them twice on loan and then permanently. And then he went to Brazil to go and play there. But he just had a ridiculous long shot. His free kick against Man City is world class, mate. You need to go watch it. The free kick, it is literally a thunderbolt in the top left-hand corner. It is unreal of a strike. He's featured in 2 UEFA Cup finals with Sporting and with Middlesbrough. Just a really aggressive midfielder, but never reached the heights that he could have done. But did play 71 times for Barcelona, which I just think is mad.
Wow.
And he played for Middlesbrough as well. Crazy. But his long-range screamers is what I remember him for.
I can't believe that you were signing him like all the time on your Stoke career modes. And also, the best bit about that was the fact that you were trying to basically be him in your nan's front garden. I think that's up there with the one of the worst things you've ever said on this podcast.
But that was the thing, when I think about midfielders, I go on straight to him.
I can't think there are many other people in the world that have ever wanted to be Fabio Rochenbach.
No.
You know, I get when we were younger, you know, if you're hitting a ball from long range, you know, your Lampards, your Gerrards, your Scholes, your Rooneys, your Beckhams. I can't imagine there's anybody
Fabio
else
Rochenbach, mate.
You know, playing on a
He
Saturday
must be.
afternoon, flicking a ball up, hitting it long, going, Rochenbach!
He must be like the only person. You must be the only person, Cash, that has ever actually said that. And the more that I think about it, and the more that Con was spouting off some of the names that you would normally say, you've gone with it's just really.
I
bad.
literally was, and it wasn't even a goal. It's like a gap in between a fence and a wall, and I kept striking it in there. I think the long range screamers. I don't know why. Right, so the other centre midfielder, Ad, who have you got?
So
Partner in Ugarte.
It was a toss-up between two, and I think this is quite relevant in terms of obviously what's happened recently in real life football. It was a toss-up between Hamza Chowdhury and Oliver Skip, and I've gone for Oliver Skip.
Oliver Skip.
Yeah. And I think this is notable considering that obviously not too long ago he was playing for Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League and he was actually getting reasonably good minutes. And then obviously went to Leicester when he fell out of favour at Spurs and they signed more midfielders. Never really got his Leicester career going. Obviously I know that he was injured for a good portion of it, I think. But obviously he's played quite a bit this season for them. And the fact that they've now been relegated to League One would suggest that he is not of any quality whatsoever. And even when he was playing for Spurs in the Premier League, where I'd be able to watch him a bit more often, I always thought he was absolutely pony.
Yeah, but he promised, again, another young player. There's a lot of players that are promised big things when they're younger, and he was one of them. And you're probably thinking he was about the time of Harry Kane, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So they're probably thinking he could potentially be club captain, and he's not lived up to that hype at all.
Well, I was doing some research on Oliver Skip just to obviously double check some stats and stuff like that. Not like he was a prolific goal scorer at midfield, he wasn't. He's only ever scored 1 goal for Spurs and 1 goal for Leicester. But he's only 25.
Is he?
Yeah, I thought he was way older than that. He's younger than me. He's 25.
So he's got time to prove you wrong then. He's got time. He'll go back to Spurs next season, the Championship, won't he?
He won't prove me wrong, but yeah, he technically does have time to prove me wrong, but he won't.
So who have you gone for, Con, in midfield?
So, partnering Alberto Aquilani, I've gone for somebody who just, anytime I watched him play football, it was hard just not to laugh at him. And that's David Dunn.
David Dunn. I want to say over like 400 appearances for Blackburn.
He's made a serious number of appearances in the Premier League. 382 Premier League appearances.
Oh, 382. Good job it's not the
he
FAQ this week.
So yeah, I think one of the things that stands out for me was always that failed Rabona in a game against Aston Villa.
The failed Rabona is like, it's an iconic moment. Obviously, I used to have like DVDs when I was younger of like really like football fail moments, and it was always on there, and it would make me laugh every single time because it's ridiculous.
He's one of those players. When he first started out, there were genuinely people hyping him up to be the next Gaza. And I don't know how those comparisons ever came about, because he certainly was nowhere near the level that Gaza was at. He was at Blackburn, fell out with Graham Souness and moved to Birmingham, and then he started quite brightly at Birmingham, but then his career there got derailed by hamstring injuries that he kept suffering. Returned back to Blackburn then, and had a couple of spells where he was one of the, a key player in that squad, a key leader. I think he was the club captain for a while there as well. But yeah, never really went on to do anything major. And just, like I say, I found it difficult. I think because of the failed Rabona, but also just because of the way he played anyway. I just found it quite funny to try and watch him dictate play from midfield and try and run around a bit, because he couldn't really do it very well.
That's a great shot, that is.
So David Dunn's in with Alberto Aquilani.
So partnering my hero, Fabio Rocheback, is a player that I believe just didn't live up to the hype that was promised. Is Abu Diaby.
Arsenal.
Injured all the time, wasn't he?
A player that was injured so much throughout his entire career. He made 124 appearances for Arsenal, which is more than I thought. But at a time when we were going through a transition of getting rid of Vieira, Abu Diaby was seen as the young prospect to come through and go and take over that mantle. Very similar in profile, very similar in the way he approached the game, the way he dribbled the ball, the way he beat defenders. He was so aggressive. Technically, very, very good. Technically, I'd say excellent with the ball. However, just his whole entire career just rebutted by injuries. Injuries just completely took him off the face of the earth, and he was never able to get any momentum to have a career at Arsenal. So for me, he is questionable quality because of just, he could have been one of the best midfielders we've ever had. I think he could have been, with his everything that he had, the technical elegance that he had, the physical presence, the box-to-box mentality. However, didn't live up to the expectation because of the amount of injuries he had.
I think in terms of like what I remember about Abu Diaby was, unfortunately for him, the only thing I remember is the fact that he was number 2 for Arsenal. And I don't remember any of his footballing ability, because obviously he was either on the on the bench, injured, or on the treatment table, basically.
Yeah.
But the only thing I remember about him is the fact that he was in midfield playing for Arsenal wearing number 2, which I always thought was quite funny.
He played like over across 10 seasons. He played 0.3 games per week. It's mad. But he could have been world class. So I've got a centre attacking midfielder in my team. Adam, have you gone for a centre attacking midfielder in yours?
I wouldn't want him to play central attacking midfield. To be completely honest, I've basically gone for like a holding 6 and then perhaps 2 number 8s, if you can call them 2 number 8s. But that's what I've gone for.
Yeah. Okay. Go on then. Who have you got?
This is really bad. My other central midfielder is Tom Davis.
Okay. Yeah. I can completely back this.
Obviously he played for Everton in the Premier League. Obviously now kicking around for Sheffield United, but
he'll be released from there, I think, won't he? I think
so. Yeah. But obviously I remember him for his time prominently playing for Everton, and he always, I don't know, I might be completely wrong in this, but I always thought that he thought he was loads better than he actually was.
The
Like,
Jack Grealish of midfield, mate. He just
the
thought he
Jack-
was class.
Yeah, with the hair, the way he strolled around the pitch for Everton at Goodison Park, he thought that he was unbelievable. Like you say, the Jack Grealish of the central midfield for Everton. And he is honestly one of the worst midfielders I have ever seen play football, especially
Just a
Premier
runner.
League level. Yeah,
Just a runner.
literally thinks if he runs, a lot, he thinks he's going to get by, but he's not. Not in the Premier League. You need some sort of technical ability, and he never had any.
He's one of those players that I think because his hair's the way it is, because his hair moves around a bit, he thinks he's great, and everybody thinks he looks world class. Because if the hair's moving, and swaying side to side as he's going, it looks like a flair player. Looks like they got something about him, and he's literally got nothing about him.
The
Absolutely
rolled down
nothing.
socks, didn't he, and all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
at Everton, I remember.
That's why I
not a
said
very
I
good
wouldn't.
player.
I wouldn't want him playing in the 10 for me. That's why he's at very best probably a number 8. But again, he's awful. So
Who have you gone then in your midfield then, Con? Have you gone for a Cam or you gone for an 8?
Yeah, I've gone for a Cam.
Okay.
I've gone for a player who was nicknamed when he signed for this club as the German Messi.
Okay.
I've gone for Marco
oh.
Marin.
Marco Marin.
Marco
okay.
Marin.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought you were going to talk about Lewis Holtby.
No. Marco Marin. Yeah, signed for Chelsea in 2012, dubbed the German Messi, and had a good start to his career at Borussia Mönchengladbach and Werder Bremen. He'd earned some caps for Germany already. He'd had a place in the 2010 World Cup squad. So signed for Chelsea with a little bit of a reputation that was growing and potential to become even better, and was complete dross.
You wear number 10 or number 11?
No, I think he wore like 21.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think, yeah. His Premier League record for Chelsea is quite astonishing, actually. He made 6 Premier League appearances for us.
6?
And across those 6 appearances, he played a total of 144 minutes.
Wow. I'd have said he played a lot more than that.
So I think that's an average of 24 minutes an appearance.
considering he's meant to be the German Messi, you'd expect him to play every week, every minute of every game.
Yeah. 1 goal and 1 assist in his Chelsea career, and his goal came against Wigan in February 2013. And he very quickly became one of the Chelsea loan army. And so I'll just list the places he's been on loan to from Chelsea. He went to Sevilla, he went to Fiorentina, Anderlecht, Trabzonspor, Olympiacos, Red Star Belgrade, Al Ahly, Al Raid, and Ferencváros.
All on loan.
Yes, they were all on loan.
What about permanently? Where's he been permanently?
Permanently, well, apart from his start in Germany and then to Chelsea, he hasn't had that many permanent moves. So, once he'd been through those loan spells, he then did. Well, no, never quite Russia, but he did. Oh, he did end up moving permanently to Olympiacos and to Red Star Belgrade, and then a very short spell in Al Ahly, and then Ferencváros was also made permanent.
Still playing?
Was called up. No, he's not got a club at the moment. When he was called up to that German squad and he'd got those appearances there, he'd been to the 2010 World Cup, but he didn't play for Germany again after that. So his career, really took a nosedive.
This is a problem with youngster hype, isn't it? It's the problem. You hype them so much up, and it's just, they don't all live up to that expectation, do they?
No, and he was certainly one that never got anywhere near it. And never, well, I mean, to be fair, his career before then, you look at the stats and you don't think it's that amazing, but he was seen as a player and a good dribbler. 8 in 87 at Werder Bremen, 8 in 68 at Borussia Mönchengladbach. So nothing spectacular that was coming from him, but certainly a player who looked like he had potential and promise. And again, another one that never got near where he maybe should have done.
He reminds me of Bojan that was at Barcelona. That sort of type of player.
I nearly picked him. I had him an hour ago.
Yeah. I nearly picked him as well, but that's why I wanted to mention him quickly. You reminded me of Bojan in terms of like the promise and like the hype and stuff like that. Obviously, Bojan played for Barcelona I'm pretty certain Cash he played for Stoke, if I'm
He
not.
did. He ended up at
if I'm
Stoke, yeah.
And then obviously, I think he ended up finished his career in the MLS. I'm pretty certain. But yeah, again, a player with loads of promise and just never delivered. And obviously, the media and the hype and everything around Marin and around Bojan was probably around the similar time, and they both had similar outcomes.
So, a player that I've gone for in the centre attacking midfielder, he actually was an 8 for me, but then I had to move him up because I actually thought, he is a 10. So, I've gone for a player who played for Charlton. He made 67 appearances in total with his loan and permanent when he joined there. He scored 9 goals. He is probably China's greatest ever player to play in the Premier League, but probably China's greatest ever player. His name is Zheng Ji. So Zheng Ji, when you watch his highlights, mate, he's a baller. Honestly,
I'm not even
knocking around that 10.
I don't even know who he is, so yeah.
He played for Shenzhen. He played for Shandong. He played for Celtic after Charlton, and then he finished his career with 226 appearances for Guangzhou in China. So a total of 440 league appearances. Just really good technically. Would knock the ball around. You know, you watch him in some of the highlights on YouTube because all the Chinese media outlets, because at the time they were putting that all out there on YouTube because this player was playing in the Premier League. We'd had Chinese players before in the Premier League, but he was probably the biggest name to go into the Premier League and go and try it out. He won Asian Footballer of the Year in 2013. He became a Guangzhou legend. He is probably one of the most influential midfielders of his generation from China. He scores an unbelievable goal for Celtic that I've watched, where he spins around and literally volleys it into the net. But yeah, one of the greatest Chinese players to ever grace the Premier League in Zheng Ji. And actually, when you watch his highlight package, it's decent. 1 touch, 2 touches, mate. He looked really good. But physicality-wise, probably let him down. He was more of a 10 of technical quality rather than that, keeping up with the Premier League tempo sort of thing. But yeah, that's Zheng Ji.
Not a clue.
Con, did you know or not? Con, did you know or not?
Did I know what?
Did you know who Zheng Ji was?
The name rings a bell, but I wouldn't have been able to. I feel like I've heard the name, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what clubs he played for or what position he played.
Okay. Right, so that my midfield done. We're now going to go to the wings. So, left wing wise, I feel like we might have the same person, but I'll let you tell the listeners which one you've gone for.
I don't think we have the same person, and now I'm probably going to be there like, okay, I can see why you'd think that we'd have the same person. Left wing, I've gone for Gabriel Obertan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not the one I had, no.
No, I didn't think it would be. This quote that I found on GiveMeSport.com sums him up. So Give Me Sport say that he is a speedboat without a steering wheel. Man United brought him just on pure pace alone. They paid £3 million for him, and he was quick. I'm not going to deny it. He was quick, but in terms of actual technical ability, he couldn't do anything with the ball whatsoever. He thought that he was like the reincarnation of Thierry Henry, starting off his career as a left winger, being French and everything like that. But he was completely awful. And somehow, it sums up Newcastle, I think, especially around that time. Somehow, Man United sold him to Newcastle. Somehow. And I don't understand why Newcastle thought, he's probably because he was playing for Man United and they thought that he'd be all right, especially at that time because we were still challenging and we were still winning Premier Leagues and stuff like that. So they probably thought that it was basically a steal, getting a Man United player. But no, he was completely awful. He was awful for Man United. He was awful for Newcastle. And yeah, he was just, like you say, a speedboat without a steering wheel. So he's my left winger.
Connor, who have you gone for on your left wing?
So I have gone for somebody who, again, was tipped to be the next big thing in world football. Like, he was hyped up to be a potential superstar. And again, never got anywhere near it. I have gone for Royston Drenthe.
Oh, wow.
Oh, do you know what? He was in one of my
shout.
drafts. He was in one of my drafts for the TQQ. Literally this morning when I was finalising my team. Yeah, his story. I
Number
don't know,
10 for Everton, wasn't he?
I know you're probably going to tell his story, Con, but it's ridiculous.
Oh, it's crazy being, picked out by Real Madrid after he sort of burst onto the scene a little bit at Feyenoord and at the 2007 Under-21 Euros. Got that move to Real Madrid, 46 appearances for Real Madrid, which is more than I thought he would have made for them, and getting 2 goals. But he certainly didn't become the next Galactico, as many people thought he might have done. And so joins Everton on loan. And to be fair, 3 goals and 5 assists in 21 league appearances doesn't seem horrific. There are certainly worse records that players that have played in the Premier League have had. But it was just chaos from start to finish. There was moments where he showed some of his pace and some of his technical ability, and there were other times when there was a lot of tactical indiscipline and questionable positioning because he was just all over the shop. I think he became quite a lazy player. I think his attitude, and again, I think he had that belief of he should be a star player, but certainly never did look like being a star player once he'd left Feyenoord. And despite the fact that he had that really great start or breakout at the Euros Under-21 tournament in 2007, he only made 1 senior cap for the Netherlands.
Oh, wow.
Which I think shows the drop-off that he had. So, yeah, he was pretty poor at Everton on the whole. 3 goals, 5 assists. So there was a little bit of, or very brief moments of potential class, but never anywhere near what he should have been. And I think because of just how much of a flop he really turned out to be, considering how well he started, Royston Drenthe gets in the left wing position for my TQQ.
It was all about like off-field stuff as well, wasn't it, with him? I remember watching a TikTok. Tim Howard was on the podcast with someone, I can't remember the name of the podcast, and they were asking him about like a really bad influence Everton players, and Tim Howard literally just goes in on him about his like off-field antics, being late for training, being lazy, having bad attitude and stuff like that. And like I say, I was just going to add on to what Con said. Obviously, I did a little bit of research about him because, like I say, before I finalised my team, he was in and around it. It got that bad that David Moyes banned him from the Everton training ground.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad it got.
Yeah, he was given a leave of absence and then reported late for training when he should have been back, and then was then told to stay away from the club for an FA Cup semi-final in 2012.
Influences in football, especially for young players, is such a key important part. And I think that's why we see at the moment, like Jude Bellingham, these players that are going to reach the heights, and they clearly are because of the support network they have around them. At the moment, I think about all these players that are coming through. If they don't have that behind them, they will definitely flop. They will definitely fail. The money gets a lot, doesn't it? If he's left Real Madrid and gone to Everton, obviously the motivation clearly isn't going to be there as much as it would have been if he's playing for Real Madrid, because now you ended up at Everton. So,
that's the thing. He had that move to Real Madrid. He'd had a loan spell, I think, at Hercules, and then went to Everton on loan as well. And then you just look at his career path after that. He had a spell at Reading. He had a spell at Sheffield Wednesday, and then he went into the depths of lower league football abroad as well. So really did just nosedive off a cliff from that moment. And when I was doing my research, he was presented as a Real Madrid player the same day as Wesley Sneijder.
Was he?
Obviously, both had ended up with very, very different career paths.
Very different career paths, yeah. A player, and I'm sticking with this train of young players with a lot of hype, which I thought you'd have gone with. That is another Manchester United player. He made 50 appearances and he scored 5 goals over a period of time for them. He's had several loan appearances, but he really made his name in the Spanish league at Real Sociedad. 132 appearances, 15 goals. Then went to Sevilla, which I think he's still at, maybe potentially Sevilla, or he's not got a club at the minute. He's been in Turkey, he's been at Las Palmas. But a really silky dribbler is Adnan Januzaj, a player promised a lot of hype. Confidence was borderline arrogance when he was a young kid. He was inconsistent. He scored some very good goals for Manchester United. He was quite important in that Louis van Gaal team, I would say, dropping in and out. During the time that he was there, 2 goals on his full debut, which is similar to probably Federico Makeda, which maybe we might get onto him at some point. But yeah, he'd been in the World Cups. I didn't know this, but he was eligible to play for 5 different countries, and there was a big talk at the time about whether England should try to get Adnan Januzaj to play for England. And there was a big conversation about that. Spurs nearly signed him, and they make constant comments that Pochettino nearly signed him. Just low defensive output from him, but a really, really good winger in terms of silky dribbling. And for Real Sociedad, was a decent player for them.
Definitely 100%. I agree with your word of decent. Decent player is definitely what describes Adnan Januzaj, especially in the Spanish league and especially for Real Sociedad. Obviously, he did have moments of brilliance for Man United, did have moments of brilliance for Belgium and for Sociedad and stuff like that. But I agree with what you said about his consistency. It was non-existent, basically.
No, and people with Adnan Januzaj, unless you are literally lighting it up at Manchester United, you are going to be replaced very quickly. You have to hit the ground running, you have to be consistent, otherwise you're going to get replaced. And that's what happened to Adnan.
Obviously, yeah, and I think a massive thing that probably doesn't get spoke about enough is he was probably everyone thought at the club, and he probably thought that he was going to be the heir to the left wing role of Ryan Giggs, because obviously that would have been when Ryan would have just retired at Man United, and they were looking for that new left winger, and obviously to have to deal with that sort of pressure as well. Maybe it wasn't as obvious pressure as you can see from the outside, but I'd imagine from the inside he probably thought that he was brought in to replace Ryan Giggs, which obviously didn't work out in the slightest.
Yeah, he was given the number 11 shirt as well, wasn't he? Sorry, I was just Googling then, because I remember him, it's either 7 or 11, I couldn't remember which one he had, but given literally the Ryan Giggs shirt as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Which adds to that pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On the right wing then, Ad, who have you got in your team?
Again, there was a lot
Not another Arsenal player.
No, we'll get to that.
Oh, God.
We'll get to that. No, my right winger of choice is Jordan Ibe.
Okay. Yeah, another failed youngster.
Yeah, there's a common theme here, I think, that we've definitely got from, especially our midfielders and our forwards so far. But yeah, Jordan Ibe, obviously, he was brought in. I don't know whether he was signed from to Liverpool or whether he came through with his academy or not, but there was a lot of hype around him as well, saying that he was the one that was supposed to replace Raheem Sterling when Sterling went to City. Obviously, again, a little bit similar to some of the players that we've already mentioned, spent a lot of time on the treatment table, which probably hounded his, he probably hounded his growth and his development and his, his just natural flow of how to play the game, basically. But even when he did get on the field for either Liverpool or either Bournemouth, I never thought that he was anywhere near the level that he should have been to be a Premier League footballer. And a little fun fact, I obviously, you boys know that we all play Football Manager. I was starting off a Plymouth Argyle Football Manager save probably about a year or so ago, and I signed Jordan Ibe because he was free agent, and I thought, it'd be a massive signing for me getting Jordan Ibe. Yeah. And in shock news, he spent the entire season on the treatment table, so it correlates from real life to Football Manager as well.
And I think that's all impacted on his mental health as well, hasn't it? Because he's come out recently and said about how his mental health has affected his career because of the injuries that he got, and he wasn't playing, he wasn't getting the reps that he needed.
Yeah.
How much was he signed for from Liverpool to go to Bournemouth?
I will double check.
I think it was 15 million.
Yeah,
15 million.
It was a lot of money.
Million.
It wasn't a chunk of change. Was it 15 million? Was it, Con?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I originally had him down in my team and then changed my mind quite last minute. Yeah, 15 million quid Bournemouth paid for him, which even at the time when I seen that he'd signed for 15 million, I thought, oh, that's a lot of money for him. And I know in recent years he's had spells down in non-league, I think just to try and keep his fitness levels up and trying to get his love of the game back, which I don't think has worked for him, unfortunately. But yeah, the time he spent on the treatment table injured certainly has impacted the career that maybe he could have had. Was he fit all the time?
Yeah.
So, if you didn't choose Jordan Ibe, then Con, who did you actually go for?
So I'm quite surprised that Ad didn't go for this one.
I know he's gonna say. I already know. Go on.
I've gone for Anthony.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say Anthony. I knew you were, and
Yes. Terrible.
I thought with Manuel Ugarte in my team, I was like, I really, really, really can't put Anthony in, but I probably should have done.
How much did they sign him for? Come on.
80 odd million, wasn't it? 80 odd million pounds.
Unbelievable money.
Which is the biggest fee ever paid for a player from the Eredivisie.
Is it?
It's huge.
Wow.
And
the players they've had there as well.
Yeah. And Eric Ten Hag masterclass, bringing in his chums from over in the Netherlands. And it all worked out
the
really,
agents
really
that he knows
well.
and stuff, yeah.
62 Premier League appearances, 5 goals, 3 assists. That is 0.08 goals per game.
And a lot of arrogance to go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plays like he should be up there with Messi and Ronaldo, or thinks that he should be up there with Messi and Ronaldo, but plays like he should be playing for Shrewsbury Town under Gavin Cowan. He is just...
It's all tricks and no idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the tricks and like stopping the defender, does his tricks. Maybe he'll get past him, or sometimes just do the trick and then just pass the ball. It's like, well, why are you doing that? Why have you done a step over for no reason?
He is so left-footed, it's unreal. Like, you get some of the wingers that play in the Premier League these days. I mean, I'll even go to Amad Diallo, who actually just should have just been playing more over him anyway. But obviously he plays predominantly more on the right now, or whether it's Brian and Burmo, both left-footed, both right wingers, and I'd even throw Bukayo Saka into that mix as well, and Noni Madueke for that matter. You go, okay, if you're a right winger but you're left-footed, use your right foot. Just take us to the byline and use your right foot, and all of the wingers that I've just mentioned there can do that, and they can do it very well. Anthony could never ever. It's almost like he was allergic he was allergic to using his right foot, and on the many few occasions that he did, he'd go to cross the ball and it would go out for a goal kick because he couldn't use it, and it was just horrendous. And I completely agree with you putting him in your side, Con. Yeah.
For the amount of money, if they didn't spend the amount of money on him, then 20 million would have been 20 million, wouldn't it? But 80 million, same as I've not gone for Nicolas Pepe, but I equally could have gone for him. Could have gone, but a player that I actually went for, well, I've gone to Blackpool again. So Ian Evert, because this player, he's just a workhorse. But the fact that this lad made it into the Premier League. Gary Taylor-Fletcher on the right wing. Work rate off the charts. A really good presser of the ball, but, never elite technically. I don't know. You want to go back and watch it, but he scores for Leicester in a pre-season friendly. So he's left Blackpool. I don't know how old he is at this point, but he's gone to Leicester. And he is literally overweight. Like, he literally looks like me. And that is literally, probably does with the hair and everything. He's got a shaved head like I have. He literally looks like me. And I'm thinking, mate, you're playing Premier League football. I think it's crazy. Yeah, just never elite. But the fact that he did make it to the Premier League, it just shows if you work really hard in the lower divisions and eventually you do get there. So it's an amazing that he even got there. Spotted playing non-league football. He used to be a roofer. Which you'd probably think when he finished playing, he looked like a roofer as well.
He looked like he should have been playing darts rather than football, didn't he? He looks like the bloke you see. You see him stroll into the pub every night after work. He's having a couple of Carlins, a bag of nuts, a bag of crisps, and he's throwing some darts at a dartboard. And having a great time every night after work. So the fact that he played A, professional football, but B, in the Premier League is absolutely crazy. And I mean, he was a bit of a talisman. He was well liked by Blackpool supporters and was a big part of that team that got into the Premier League. And he scored a couple of Premier League goals as well. But he was not somebody that you would think, oh yeah, he's definitely played in the Premier League. You'd look at him and go, no chance.
So with us all going 4-3-3, that means we've got to have probably one central striker. And the one central striker has got to be of questionable quality. So, just give me the name, please.
The striker of choice to round off my team of questionable quality is Yaya Sanogo.
Connor, who is your striker?
My striker is Josie Altidore.
And mine is Pavel Pogrebniak. Which I have nailed that pronunciation, by the way. I've nailed it. Right, let's start off with Yaya. Good old Yaya. Next Henri, promised to be.
Yeah, he was promised and instantly failed, pretty much.
Who did he play for before Arsenal?
He played for Auxerre in the French second division.
The second division. It's mad.
Auxerre scored a lot of goals at the back end of their season, Auxerre, in 2013, which obviously twinkled Arsene Wenger's eye in a second division French league team.
Because he's from France, it was just like, just sign him.
Yeah, basically, you went through a real bad stage, didn't you, of signing really rubbish French footballers, and he is the epitome of that, I think.
Yeah.
So, like I say, he played for Auxerre in the French second division, scored quite a few goals towards the back end, so really, obviously, increased his stock. Probably didn't think that his stock would have increased that high that Arsenal would have been interested in him, but here we are. So, signed for Arsenal in 2013, made 11 appearances for Arsenal, and never scored a single goal.
Yeah, played in the FA Cup final as well.
Yep, he did. He's played in some big games. He's played in some big games.
He did score for Arsenal in the Cups, just not in the league.
Yeah, just not in the league. Yeah, no Premier League goals for Arsenal, should I say. Then went on loan in 2015 to Crystal Palace, where again played 10 times and didn't score a single league goal for them. Then went on loan to Ajax, played 3 times.
Went to Ajax? Did he?
He went to Ajax. Yeah, went to Ajax. went to Ajax on loan. Played 3 times and didn't score a single goal in the league again for them. He then went to Young Ajax, which I don't know what that club is.
The second team.
The second team of Ajax.
It's the second team, yeah.
Played 3 times, didn't score a single goal. So he went from the senior team to the second team and still couldn't score a league goal. He then went to Charlton Athletic on loan.
Yes, I remember him there, yeah.
Played 8 times in the league for them, did score 3 goals.
On FIFA, mate, that Charlton team were class. Him up front.
Yeah, and your midfielder in there as well, you'd be buzzing. So yeah, then obviously went to Charlton Athletic, like I said. Then signed permanently in 2017 for Toulouse. So went back to the French league. Played 63 times in the league for Toulouse, scoring 12 goals. Then I didn't know this. Played in 2021, had a season at Huddersfield Town.
Yeah, I remember him there. Yeah,
played 9 times in the league for Huddersfield Town. Again, didn't score a single goal. Then it didn't play in the 2022 season, so he was at Huddersfield Town for a year. Didn't have another club then until 2023, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but he played for Uratu. I haven't got a clue where they are or what league they're in or what country they're from. Played 15 times for them in the league, scoring 6 goals. He then went to Qingdao Red Lions in 2024, played 19 times and scored 6 goals for them. He now currently plays, I'm pretty certain, or did play last season for them, Amazonas. Didn't make a single league appearance and didn't score a single league goal. So that's Yaya Sanogo.
He was technically all right.
Rubbish.
He was all right.
No, he was
technically
awful.
he was all right.
No.
He was. It was
really...
goal scoring part. He just missed a lot of sitters. And
I'm
wasn't
really
trusted.
surprised. I know that you have a really bad selection of Arsenal kits with questionable Arsenal players on, i.e. Marouane Chamakh. I am very, very surprised that you do not have a Sanogo shirt.
Yaya Sanogo. No, he was poor. But, like, technically he was all right, but he was poor. And the fact that he was signing that era when we were just signing random French players who had physical attributes less so than their actual technical ability. But again, did play in the FA Cup final, which is a stat for him. Con, then, your striker of choice. Go on then.
Yeah, Josie Altidore. So Josie Altidore is a man
Toronto
who was...
FC, the team for me.
Yeah, so he's a man who's played 115 times for the United States and scored 42 goals, which I don't think is too bad a return.
The American fridge, I think, compared to Victor Anichebe.
Yeah. His Premier League spell is absolutely horrific. So he starts out at New York Red Bulls, 15 goals in 37 appearances, so makes a promising start to his career, and then goes off to Villarreal. Doesn't do an awful lot there at Villarreal, 1 goal in 9 appearances in total. So in August 2009, he got loaned to Hull. In the time he spent at Hull, he made 28 Premier League appearances. He scored 1 goal, which was in a 2-1 home win against Manchester City. And then towards the end of that season, in an important game, he got into a bit of a spat with Alan Hutton of Sunderland. Both players got sent off. Hull lost and they were relegated from the Premier League. So really, really big impact he made there. Colossal. Now, he then the next year went on loan to Bursaspor in Turkey and only scored 1 goal for them in the time that he was there. And then he signs for AZ Alkmaar. And so he spends 2 years there. And in those 2 years, he makes 67 league appearances and scores 39 goals.
It's a good return.
So there's a bagsman there. Yeah. So Sunderland see this and go, ooh, we'll have a bit of that. So they paid 13 million for him.
Yeah.
Bring him into Sunderland. He spends a couple of years there. And in his time at Sunderland, he makes 42 league appearances and scores just 1 goal. So this is a man that across 70 Premier League appearances in total for 2 different clubs, he scored a grand total of 2 goals. He was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. He... In his first year there, he'd made quite a few appearances, 37 appearances I think he'd made in the 2013-14 season. And then at the start of the next season, he wasn't playing as much. And so he came out and openly said to reporters, if this doesn't turn around, I'm going to be looking to go elsewhere. And in January 2015, he did exactly that. He went off to Toronto. And again, the bagsman returned. 62 goals and 139 appearances for Toronto. So there was a clear goal scorer there, but just maybe in what we would call farmers' leagues, where the talent isn't at a great level. It's not expected of you to be a very good player, to look like a good player in that league. But the fact that he got 42 and 115 for the US, also scored goals for Toronto and for AZ Alkmaar over in the Netherlands, there was a bagsman there somewhere. But when he came to the Premier League, 2 goals in 70 league appearances is a very, very poor return. And that is why I think he is a person that belongs in a team of questionable quality.
So my striker belonging in the team of questionable quality is Pavel Pogrebniak. Now, Pavel, when I think of Pavel Pogrebniak, I just see him in that Fulham shirt. The FX Pro, extremely tight shirt. Andy Johnson playing for him. I remember it like it was yesterday. He was a good striker. He was. Didn't play as many times as I thought he did for Fulham. Played a lot for Stuttgart, Zenit, St. Petersburg beforehand, before joining the Premier League. Played for Reading more times than I actually thought he did. 93 appearances and 26 goals for them. And then went on to Dinamo Moscow and then went around the Eastern European countries. But an elite penalty box instinct striker. He loved it. The cutbacks, the finishes, any headers in the box, he was all over it. He was brilliant at that.
Elite is not the correct word to use.
Yeah. Elite is a very, very strong word to describe Pavel Pogrebniak.
Yeah.
He was good at his instincts. He was good at finding the ball in the box.
He wasn't elite though.
No, no, he wasn't. He wasn't. Liam. No. Awful is actually probably the word you should use.
No, that's
rather than-
harsh. That's
No,
harsh.
it was awful.
Right,
I've
so-
got a feeling now he used to play as Pavel Pogregniak in his back garden as well. It was Rockenbach and Pogregniak.
He signed him up
teaming
front on a Stoke career mode.
He was nicknamed by our Shavin call him Poe the Great. And he was the top goal scorer of the 2008 UEFA Cup for Zenit St. Petersburg. He won it with them. And he also won the Super Cup with them. But one of the stats, which I think is a really good stat for Pavel, for Fulham, he signed in January. He scored on his debut in a 2-1 win over Stoke. In the following game, he scored against QPR in the 1-0 win. He then scored the perfect hat-trick, which means he scored with his right foot, left foot and header. Right? Penalty box instincts. He became the quickest player to reach 5 goals in Premier League history. There you go. There's your stat of what an elite striker he was for Fulham.
You can say there's your stat. There's a reason why he's in your team. Like, we are doing teams of questionable quality. But
Yeah,
not doing...
because it's questionable. Because when you think of Pavel, you don't think of elite. He
No,
goes to
'cause he's
Reading and
crap.
doesn't
He's
hit
not
the
elite.
heights.
No, he's rubbish.
He's not elite. That's why you
No.
don't think of elite, because he's
Rubbish.
not elite.
Elite for Fulham in that season. And then he goes on to Reading and has, an okay couple of seasons with them.
Oh,
Like 2 seasons
elite.
in the
He was
Championship, one
elite.
of the seasons in the
He was
Premier League.
elite everywhere he
elite
went.
for Reading.
Elite.
But yeah, what a stat to have, though. Quickest player to reach 5 goals in Premier League history. That's an unbelievable stat for Pavel. Unbelievable.
Shocking.
So
Doesn't mean a
that
lot, though, does it?
concludes our teams of questionable quality. Let's combine them. So, goalkeeper. When we're going for this team now, are we going to go for the worst player wins?
Worst player wins, yeah.
Worst player wins. Okay,
Yeah.
goalkeepers then. So, Aurelio Gomez or Danny Ward?
Equally
the-
as bad as each other. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're both
It's got to be
terrible.
Gomez, isn't it?
I think it's Gomez.
I think it's
'cause
gotta be
two
Gomez,
of us
yeah.
went for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right backs. So, I had Emmanuel Abui.
I had Khalid Boularus.
I had Carl Jenkinson.
I think Carl Jenkinson there.
It's Carl Jenkins. Yeah, I think
He's
so.
terrible. He's absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Carl. Centre R, so I had Sebastian Scalacci.
Yeah,
I had
Scalacci.
Shokran Mustafi. I think Scalacci should be in because you two obviously picked him. I think he should be one of the centre halves.
But I think outside of the Prem, he was all right, wasn't he? At Lyonnais, he was all right at the French clubs he played for.
Yeah, but he
I
wasn't.
think Mustafi was just really bad.
Well, yeah, but I think Scalacci, anywhere he went, wasn't as good as Mustafi. I think I'd rather have
The main
Mustafi in a team than I would have Scalacci.
I get your point, Con. Obviously, Mustafi was better, so let's go for Scalacci. Yeah?
Scalacci, yeah.
Scalacci. So currently a back four, the goalkeeper, Aurelio Gomez, Carl Jenkinson, Sebastian Scalacci. Obviously, next I went for Ian Evert. Ad?
I went for Wout Faz, and I think it should be Wout Faz just because it's Wout Faz.
And Connor?
Ragnar Klavan.
Yeah, I think it's Wout Faz.
It's Wout
I think
Faz,
so.
isn't it?
Wout Faz.
He's the worst by a mile.
Left back wise, I got Hariderson.
I went for Andre Santos.
I had Masadio Haidara.
I think it's Haidara or Santos.
I mean, I'm happy. The more Arsenal players that are in this team for me, the better. So I'm happy. I'm happy for it to be Andre Santos, but
Andre
Haidara-
Santos, then yeah, why not?
Yeah, Andre Santos. Both
Holding
equally bad.
midfielder then. Obviously, I got my hero, Fabio Rochenbach.
Yeah. I went for Mamadou Ugarte.
And I had Alberto Aquilani.
I think it's Aquilani.
Yeah,
He was
even though I
fairy.
would love your hero, so to speak, to be in the team of questionable
I think
quality.
Aquilani was, he was signed at big promise, wasn't he?
Yeah, if
And
you're
he never
signed to
lived up
replace Jabi Alonso, but then get replaced by Lucas Leiva, you're in the team of questionable quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Centre midfielder, I went for Abu Diaby.
My first centre midfielder, I went for Oliver Skipp.
And I had David Dunn. I think it's Oliver Skipp. I just think I just like Oliver Skipp in the Championship at Leicester should have been like what Ruben Neves was for Wolves. He should have been dictating play, passing the ball, getting assists, and he's a cart horse.
So so we'll go for him then.
We'll go for Oliver Skipp. Yeah.
To finish off our centre midfielders, so I went for Zheng Ji.
I went for Tom Davis at Everton.
And I had Marco Marin.
I think to make it more fairer, it seems as you boys went for 2 number 10s. We can pick between your two because I think then it cancels it out because then we would have gone 4-2-3-1. I think.
Okay, well, I don't think that China's greatest ever player should go into this combined. So
the German Messi probably shouldn't, but I think considering his return, he probably should. So
yes,
Marin for me.
Quality, Mario Marin. So left wing then, I went for Adnan Januzaj.
I went for Gabriel Obertan.
And I had Royston Drenthe.
I think Royston Drenthe in that one.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. The worst by a mile.
Right wing, I went for Gary Taylor-Fletcher.
I went for Jordan Ibe.
And I had Anthony.
It's got to be Anthony. Got to be Anthony.
Do you know what?
Got to be Anthony.
It pains me, but it's got to be Anthony out of them 3. It's got to be Anthony.
So up front, I've got my elite striker in Pavel Pogregniak.
He's not getting in because you keep calling him elite. So he's not getting in straight away.
He's got to be worse, though. Worse. Go on, who'd you get?
I went for Yaya Sanogo.
And I had Josie Altidore, and the worst in there is absolutely Yaya Sanogo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have to help me out with this team. So it's Gomez, Jenkinson, Scalacci,
Wout Faz.
Faz,
Andre Santos.
holding midfielder,
Aquilani.
Oliver
centre
Skipp.
midfielder,
Oliver Skipp in the number 8.
Marco Marin's in the 10. And then we've got
With
Royston
wingers.
Drenthe on the left. We've got Anthony on the right. And we've got Yaya Sanogo up front.
that is a sign. That is cooking.
Can I make a slight petition as well, by the way? I did include a manager in my list of after I made my team. And my manager is Igor Tudor.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I
Who'd
went
you
for a
have?
different manager. I went for Bob Bradley.
Oh, Bradley. I'm happy with either. I think Igor Tudor might be a bit recency biased, but I'm happy with either.
Oh. Bob Bradley was a meme. I mean, Igor Tudor. Bob Bradley, mate. Bob Bradley.
For the memes.
Yeah, I think it's got
For the
to be the
memes,
memes. Do you remember? Who was it? They did it on Soccer AM when they used to do.
They used to do Brad Bobley and Megnuts.
Yeah. Jimmy Bullard, wasn't it? And yeah.
Fenners. Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
He didn't help himself, Bob Bradley, when in press conferences he was calling them PKs. Like, that's just not.
Yeah. When Soccer AM make a like a gimmick out of you, basically, a segment, you're in big trouble. So yeah.
Yeah.
So that is our Teams of Questionable Quality. Tune in next time when we have the return of the LQQ. The League of Questionable Quality comes back for when Connor will spin that wheel and we will have a player to choose from. Take care.